Friends, Not Masters. A Political Autobiography. Mohammad Ayub Khan, President of Pakistan. Published in 1967. This is a Plisken audiobook presentation dedicated to those who have worked for the building of Pakistan as a progressive and modern state, and to those who have defended it with such distinction. Chapter 6. The Revolution. The hour had struck. The moment so long delayed had finally arrived. The responsibility could no longer be put off. It was the October 4th, 1958, and as I settled down in my railway saloon, I knew that an era was coming to an end. I was going to Karachi, where an agonizingly prolonged political farce was drawing to a close. A few days earlier, President Iskandar Mirza had conveyed to me that the whole situation was becoming intolerable, and that he had decided to act. For years we had all hoped that the political leaders of the country would wake up to their grave responsibilities. Among them were patriotic men of talent and ability, some DOS associates of the Quaid-e-Azam who had guided the struggle for Pakistan with great vision, statesmanship, and unfaltering fervor and determination. Later, they had seen the cool, courageous and tenuous manner in which Liaquat Ali Khan was trying to steer the ship of state through turbulent water. Each for a time managed to grab the central trapeze caught in the beams of giant arc lights, but the next moment hurtled down into a dark net of intrigue and incompetence. I arrived in Karachi on 5 October. Yahya, Hamid, and one or two other officers had preceded me. I went to see General Iskandar Mirza. He was sitting on the lawn, brooding, bitter and desperate. I asked him, "Have you made up your mind, sir?" "Yes," he replied. "Do you think it is absolutely necessary?" "It is absolutely necessary," he said firmly. My reaction was that it was very unfortunate that such a desperate stage had been reached, necessitating drastic action. And it was not pleasant to get involved in it, but there was no escape. It was the last bid to save the country. A few days before this, 3 ministers and 4 ministers of state were sworn into the central cabinet, bringing the total to 26 to bolster tottering Republican Awami League coalition government under Malik Feroz Khan Noon. There followed an unseemly wrangle over portfolios. On 7 October at 1 p.m. the portfolios were redistributed. Promptly the Awami League resigned from the government. A fresh allocation of portfolios was announced at 7 p.m., but by then the central authority had collapsed. The curtain was rung down at 800 p.m., when, in a dramatic sweep, Iskandar Mirza abrogated the constitution, proclaimed martial law throughout Pakistan, dismissed the central and provincial governments, the National Assembly, and the provincial assemblies, and appointed me Chief Martial Law Administrator. From that time onwards, emotions had no place in the proceedings. Now that this job had to be done, it must be done properly. A simple plan was formulated and put into operation. I advised General Iskandar Mirza, "You had better inform your Prime Minister about the situation." He thought it was unnecessary, as he had no doubt about the legality of his action. I said, "I want 2 things from you in writing: one, that I will administer martial law, and the other, a letter to the Prime Minister that you have taken this decision, that the government has been dissolved, that you have abrogated the constitution and declared martial law, and that you have appointed me to administer the martial law." He wrote the letter to Malik Feroz Khan Noon without any difficulty, but he did not seem particularly keen to give me the letter of authority to administer the martial law. I wanted him to write the letter to the Prime Minister, so that he should assume full responsibility for his decision. He, as the constitutional head of government, had come to the conclusion that the country could not be run any more on a constitutional basis. I said, "At least you have done something, and I believe you have done the right thing. But I fed that I must have it from you in writing." He hummed and hawed, but finally agreed to give me the letter after 2 or 3 days. Revolutions take long and painstaking preparation, detailed planning, clandestine meetings, and country-wide movement of troops. In REs there was very little preparation. It was handled as a military operation. What happened was that a brigade was moved. Actually 2 brigades, an infantry and an artillery brigade, are normally stationed in Karachi. We therefore had enough troops to deal with any situation that might arise on the promulgation of martial law, but as a matter of precaution, We moved an extra brigade from Quetta to Jungshahi, outside Karachi. That was all the military preparation we made. The army always has something in hand for the unforeseen. In an operation like this you cannot accept failure. Had martial law been challenged anywhere even for a moment, a most dangerous situation would have arisen, hence the precaution of moving a brigade to Jungshahi. On the night of the revolution we informed the commanders-in-chief and AIL local commanders of what had happened and required them to ensure that law and order was maintained. That was all. We then proceeded to set up the normal hierarchy of martial law administrators, and their duties were defined. The relationship between the civil authorities and the army evolved gradually. We had made sure that the operation would succeed. The question now was the extent to which one could go. My own feeling was that if there was any resistance it would be nominal and we should be able to deal with it very quickly. I did not think that there would be any occasion for the use of force at all. The people were completely fed up with the state of affairs and desperately wanted a change, and they had great respect for the army. For a time there was talk of reviving a regulation which was operative during the first martial law period in Lahore, in 1953, which provided for action against those responsible for the collapse of law and order. We considered this as the first regulation when revolution came, and it would have given us powers to deal with politicians who had brought the country to the brink of an abyss. But I said no, we ought not to do that. I was anxious that the people should settle down very quickly, and get on with the reconstruction of the country and the rehabilitation of society. I wanted to lower the temperature as fast as possible. When martial law came it was like pressing a button. Things started moving, and that was because our people were basically sound and we had a good civil service. That was also the reason why I did not operate martial law, as a means of punishing people for their past misdeeds. Had we embarked on that, the whole effort would have assumed a negative complexion. What the country needed was a positive effort to move forward, to build itself and the economy into a dynamic and progressive force. There could be little sense in wasting our limited manpower in creating an atmosphere of repression and intimidation, instead of utilizing our resources for constructive work. It was also clear to me that for martial law to be of any use at all, it was necessary to reinstate and bring into operation the normal organs of the state. The first thing I did on the morning after the declaration of martial law was to call a meeting of all the secretaries to the central government. I explained to them what had happened, and what they were required to do. I also gave them a general outline of policy. I noticed that one or two of them looked rather sulky, and I went for them. They all settled down after that fairly quickly. We started off with a council of secretaries, and for a couple of months it continued to function. As I have said, on the day of the takeover, certain troops were to move to some key positions in case there was any trouble. One or two units received very contradictory orders on the telephone. These orders were supposed to have been given to a brigade commander by the defense secretary. From that moment, men in the army began to get rather suspicious. They even started suspecting one another, for no one knew who might be trying to plant the seed of suspicion. I think they came to the conclusion that Iskander Mirza had already got cold feet. We received information that his wife was quarreling with him all the time. She kept telling him that he had made a great mistake, but now that it was done, he should finish off Ayub Khan. Iskander Mirza, through the intelligence bureau and others, tried to find out the disposition of troops at certain key points. He also tried to discover the army order of battle around Karachi. One of my first acts was naturally to go to East Pakistan, where the bulk of our people live, but Iskander Mirza appeared to be unhappy. He warned me, "Be very careful because there are a lot of people after your blood." I said I am used to that. There was a big public meeting in Dhaka which I addressed. I think after that Iskander Mirza became rather apprehensive. But I had told him myself beforehand, "Look, circumstances have changed. A revolution has taken place, you have ushered it in, and you have made me responsible for running the country. It is not just an ordinary routine revolution, there is going to be a real basic change in this country. This is my policy. Now do not get frightened. It is my responsibility, I have to carry the load, but I am determined to carry out certain basic reforms. And please try not to get involved in any intrigue or anything like that. You've no reason to, since I am determined to uphold your authority and give you the fullest loyalty." He said, "Then it is all right," and I replied, "Good." But we kept on getting information that his wife was all the time nagging him, urging him to act quickly against me, When I returned from East Pakistan and landed at Moripur Airport, Major General Sher Bahadur came to me and said, "Sir, in your absence, Air Commodore Rab of the Pakistan Air Force was rung up by the President, General Iskander Mirza, and asked, 'Are you loyal to this country?' Rab said, 'Yes, I am loyal.' 'Are you loyal to me as the President?' He said, 'Yes, I am loyal. Will you take orders from me even at the risk of your life?' To which Rab replied, 'Sir, let me know what the orders are.' Iskander Mirza said, 'I want you to go and arrest 3 army generals. They are General Yahya, General Sher Bahadur and General Hamid.' Air Commodore Rab hesitated and played for time. He suggested, 'Sir, may I come over? Would you put it in writing?' I told General Sher Bahadur, 'Do not take it seriously.' I did not want the thing to boil up. At the same time, I knew that Iskander Mirza was capable of doing such a stupid thing. It was stupid because it would at once have led to trouble between the services, and God knows what would have happened. What Iskander Mirza did not realize was that if he had moved against the army and its leadership, the first thing the army would have done would have been to finish him. So I went to him and said, 'Look, what are you up to? I hear you have been ordering arrests of army officers.' He tried to reassure me. 'You have been misinformed. There is no truth in it.' I warned him. 'No monkeying and no tricks. Be very careful, you are playing with fire, and in any case there is no need for it. We are all prepared to give you our highest loyalty. Why then are you indulging in this mischief?' Meanwhile the army's legal experts came up with the opinion that since the constitution had been abrogated and martial law declared, and a chief martial law administrator appointed, the office of president was redundant. That according to their light was the legal position. I said, 'Now, don't you chaps start creating more problems for me. Why do you bother me? It will serve no useful purpose.' Chief Justice Munir was there, I think, when this point came up for discussion. He had been advising Iskander Mirza about certain matters before the revolution. I called him and thought that I would see Iskander Mirza too. I asked Colonel Qazi to state his point of view. His position was that the president no longer had any place in the new arrangement. Munir disagreed. I told Qazi, 'I agree with Munir, this is final. Accept this as a decision.' I then asked him to leave. I had hoped that Iskander Mirza would settle down to the new situation. We had been good friends. I told myself that unless he did anything overtly wrong, it would be disloyal on my part to act against him. A few days later my military commanders came to me and said, 'This man is no longer bearable.' I said, 'Why do you say that?' Then they cited instances of his ringing up various people to involve them in some deal. In the meantime the feeling was growing among the people that so long as Iskander Mirza remained on the scene, intrigues would continue, and nothing worthwhile or constructive would be done. My associate said, 'Your difficulty seems to be that you don't want to go and tell a friend that he is being thoroughly disloyal, but this is something bigger than your personal friendship, and we sincerely advise you, we beg of you to understand that we cannot carry him with us any longer.' I said, 'All right, give me a couple of days to think it over.' I hoped that he would settle down, and my own associates would settle down too. But the clamour became louder from headquarters, and from the army officers. They all said, 'Whatever you may be doing, this man is going to nullify it all.' They feared that the people would have no faith in our policies, and there would be no peace in the country. All efforts at improvement would come to naught. I said finally, 'If you feel like that, I shall go and tell him so.' They said, 'No, you should not go. We will tell him on your behalf.' 3 generals went to him, General Burki, General Azam, and General Khalid Shak, and conveyed to Mirza from me that I was very sorry, but he had not been very wise in the way he had been going about things. He was told it was also quite clear that the people did not like him, and that they were not prepared to put up with him. Now, what was to be done? The interests of Pakistan were involved, and he must rise to the occasion. It seems that he realized the gravity of the situation, and agreed to surrender power. Major General Cawthorne, Australian High Commissioner, and an old friend of Iskander Mirza, asked where Iskander Mirza was going. I told him that he wanted to go to England. The question was to find him accommodation, and a suitable aircraft. For 4 or 5 days we could not find one, and we were afraid that if he remained in Karachi, the people might flare up, and the situation deteriorate. So we asked him to go to Quetta. He agreed and we flew him there. Cawthorne said, 'I would like to go and see him.' I said, 'You can go and see him, you can go with him if you like. He is not a prisoner or anything like that. I think he went to the Karachi airport and met him. When Iskander Mirza finally left for England, he had to wait for a few hours at Moripur airport. Most of his friends met him and bade him farewell. I was most unhappy making this decision. I was unhappy for him too. How unfortunate that he could not be loyal to anybody. There are some who believe that my faith in Iskander Mirza was misplaced, and people often wonder why I did not realize that he was not the man who could have served the objectives of the revolution. But during the period when he was secretary to the Ministry of Defense, one could get decisions from him, and, where his personal interest was not involved, he was quick and efficient. It was not entirely unjustified to hope that, with our support, he would be able to operate as an effective head of government. After all, he had more experience than any other politician one could think of. All the politicians had been tried and found wanting. There was no one else left on the civil side. So I continued to have faith in Iskander Mirza even when everyone else appeared to have lost it. But that is part of my makeup. I can face very hard things in life, but I dislike being rude or discourteous. I only act when my patience is exhausted, which is why my actions in such matters are at times delayed. Of one thing I am certain now. Even if Iskander Mirza had wanted to play straight, he would not have had the courage to stand up and face the consequences of the reforms which were being introduced. I do not think his remaining in office would have done any good. He could not have identified himself with the change. During the martial law period, I once told the pressman, "I am a man in a hurry. There are so many things to do, and there is so little time in which to do them." My aim was that instead of my doing everything, equipped with absolute powers, people should do things for themselves. The quicker they learnt to act on their own, the better. The sooner we made them face up to their problems, the better it would be for the country. That was why I wanted martial law to end quickly, and the Constitution to come in. There was a crying need for certain major reforms. Martial law was just a base from which to carry out those reforms. True, if anyone had resisted them, severe action would have followed, but luckily there was no need for such action. Take the example of how readily people declared their untaxed hidden wealth. They declared 1,700 million rupees. I asked a businessman, "Why did you do it?" He said, "In one of your photographs I saw you with your finger pointed like this, and your mouth screwed up like this. I said to myself, this man will not leave us alone. He will go for us if we don't respond." So we all sat together and decided to play the game. In any case, we were paying 33% income tax, as against 75%, so we thought we were getting away rather lightly. "Why not take advantage of it?" He added, "Although you never lifted your little finger, that photograph did the trick."